But another question that I have is, if integrating CS into another content area, are we further diluting CS by also focusing on ethics? So for example, one of the things that I talk about is how, if we think of like a Venn diagram, so we have like two circles, and one circle is like the, science, and the other circle is computer science. Now, where they overlap, that little portion in the middle is going to be the thing that we might focus on when integrating computer science into a science class. But if we also now include a third circle, that is ethics, on top of that, are we narrowing our scope so much that we are ignoring all the things that are outside of that little narrow scope that are within each of the other domains? So the more lenses that we apply onto a particular area, does it make it so that we cannot actually focus on learning concepts and practices that do not exist within that particular nexus or intersection? Now, again, there's no right or wrong answer to this, but it's something that's important to think about, again, in relation to the null curricula, which has kind of been the theme of this particular episode. So now, as an example of what I'm talking about here, so one of the things that I've mentioned so many times in this particular podcast is my emphasis on focusing on interest-driven learning. So students would come into a class. If there are 30 kids in the class, they'd be able to create 30 unique projects using multiple different programming languages and platforms to be able to create something that was uniquely interesting to them. If I had a requirement that there had to be some kind of ethical component to explore or discuss or understand or whatever, would that then narrow the scope so that students would be unable to actually explore their interest within that class? Now, on one hand, I can think of some examples where that's a definitive yes, but on the other hand, it's like, okay, well, I could see how we might be able to at least discuss it, but it might not be the primary focus for the different types of projects that students like to create. So while I agree that ethics can and should be incorporated into the classroom, different pedagogies may or may not lend itself toward that kind of integration. If you want to listen to the full episode of this podcast, check out episode 182 of the SIGCSE podcast on any podcast platform you listen to.